Okay, so what if the entire concept of heresy was just a total misunderstanding? Today, we're jumping into a pretty radical philosophy that says exactly that. And it connects it to this really bold, kind of startling vision for where humanity is headed. Let's unpack this thing. You've probably thought about this before, right? It's a weird paradox. You look at most spiritual paths, and they all seem to be about, being a good person. And yet, history's just packed with conflict, with one group calling the other a heretic. Well, that exact tension is the jumping off point for the worldview we're about to get into. So, the answer this philosophy gives? It's a total mic drop. It basically says that whole premise is wrong. In the grand cosmic scheme of things, there's just no such thing as heresy. It's a concept that, well, it just doesn't exist. All right, so how on earth can heresy not exist? That seems like a pretty huge claim. Well, to get our heads around it, we first have to look at a very practical and honestly pretty surprising theory about where gods and religion came from in the first place. From this point of view, religion didn't start as some big spiritual revelation. Nope, it was all about logistics. Think about it. As human societies got bigger, they needed rules to keep from falling apart. But leaders needed a way to make people actually follow those rules. So what do? They borrow authority from a higher power. They created specific gods and religious laws, not as divine truths, but as a system of government, a tool to manage a population that they thought needed some outside control. Okay, so if the religious laws we all know were really just man-made tools for social control, does that mean there's nothing divine out there? Well, not quite. This philosophy actually does offer an alternative. It says that underneath all of these human inventions, there is one, and only one, true divine message. And here's the comparison. On the left, you've got things we all recognize, like the Ten Commandments. This philosophy argues these were created by human leaders. But then you look over on the right, and that's something totally different. This is the Jungbub, and it's presented as the real deal, the authentic, original set of principles that were meant for all of us.
So what is the Jungbub? Well, it's said to be the one true scripture given to our ancestors like 12,000 years ago. And here's the absolute crucial difference. It's not a list of don'ts. It's not a set of rules. It's described more like a blueprint for the universe itself, a guide to the natural laws that run everything and our actual purpose within that whole system.
Art. With that idea in place, this philosophy says humanity has hit this massive turning point. We're not one big group on the same spiritual path anymore. The idea is that our species has now evolved and actually separated into three totally distinct tiers. And this is the core of it. This is where we supposedly are right now. Humanity is split into three groups. You've got 30% called the intellectuals, another 30% are the aspiring leaders, and the last 40% are the general public. And the really important part is each of these groups now has a very, very different job to do. So let's break this down. Up at the top, you have the intellectuals. They're the ones who've supposedly gathered enough spiritual knowledge, or mass. For them, faith and worship isn't the point anymore. Their job now is to teach and to lead. Then you have the middle tier, the aspiring leaders. They're on their way, but they're not quite there yet. And finally, that bottom 40%, the general public. They're actually encouraged to keep using traditional religion and faith as their way to learn and to grow. And this is where we get to the most dramatic, maybe even shocking claim of this whole philosophy. If humanity is now split into three different groups, what happens next? Well, according to this teaching, they do not share the same fate. Their destinies are about to split, and I mean permanently. For that top 30%, those intellectuals who've supposedly finished all their earthly lessons, the big question is how many more lives do they get? According to this philosophy, the answer is zero. A big fat zero. This is it. This is their last go-around. So, the paths are set, and they are not the same for everyone. The top 30%, they're done with reincarnation. The idea is they ascend and leave our galaxy entirely after this life is over. The middle 30% gets one more shot. They'll come back one more time to become the leaders they're meant to be. And the bottom 40%, they get two more reincarnations to continue their journey and keep on learning. And so we're left with this really challenging final thought. This worldview basically says our spiritual destinies are not all equal. It throws out the idea of one universal path and replaces it with a hierarchy. So the question is, What would a future like that really mean for how we see ourselves, our purpose, and how we connect with each other? It's definitely something to think about.